Teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions. What are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines etc. you've seen through the years? Not a teacher, but I went to my 20th about 5 years ago. The woman organizing the event was in my class since 3rd grade and was always bright, intelligent, charming and pretty. She was very active in high school and by all accounts had a very bright future. Speaking to her at the reunion, it seemed that had happened for her. We talked about her self-help life coaching company and how they are growing and doing great. I asked her to send me more information when I got home, which is on the other side of the country. I got an email from her introducing me to her West Coast partner whose email was from the losangeles.com, which I thought sounded very contrary to what I was expecting. A quick look at their website had me immediately worried, and a short Google later I saw that they are an offshoot of the NXIVM cult that has been all over the news. The woman I was talking to, that I knew since age 8, was Lauren Saltzman, who just this week pleaded guilty to holding 2 sex slaves locked in a room for 2 years. She was trying to recruit me and basically everyone at the reunion into NXIVM. I noped right out of that email conversation and have been watching everything unfold for the last 5 years. They are all looking at some serious jail time now. Edit. Holy smokes. Thanks for the plunder and the karma. My biggest comment yet. Yay cake. The dumb ducks that graduated my year of 2001 tried to organize our 10-year reunion in 2010. Not a teacher, but I went to my 10-year reunion. Back in high school we had a kid who has Asperger's and was a little weird. He was, however, amazing at the yo-yo, having picked one up during middle school when we had that yo-yo trick assembly. After everyone else had stopped walking the dog in 8th grade, this guy was doing more and more elaborate tricks every day during lunch. He was bullied and teased, but he continued doing what he loved. So, at our 10-year reunion, people from every strata of high school popularity was there, including this guy. He was his same old self, but more confident. I asked him if he still yo-yos, and he busted out his custom-made titanium yo-yo that he said he made on a CNC lathe. He then starts to do some tricks and a large crowd gathered around. It was quite the show. He had gotten very good. When he finished, people clapped and cheered, and even the jockeys dudes from back in the day fist bumped him and told him how badass he was. The most amazing transformation was everyone else. Nobody teased him for being who he was anymore. They now admired him for being so passionate about something. Used to have this one kid in my art class in senior high who treated it like one of those easy to pass classes. He was a big guy, much bigger than the other students, and he'd use his size and strength to bully other kids, the smaller ones. He was a little itch underneath it all. He would draw guns and crosses in his art book with pseudo gangster sayings like live by da gun, die by da gun, and duck da police. You get the idea. Come reunion time, which was some 5 years later, he's found a girl who really reined him in and, kind of like a hunter taming a wolf, really turned him into a good man. They had a baby boy, and he's a responsible father and does yoga on the rocks by the beach. Complete 180. I do think he was a good guy underneath it all. He just needed direction from someone who could break down his walls. Edit. Spelling. One kid grew up to be that guy, treading the line between jolly neckbud and somewhat scary incel. I saw him after a full 12 years had passed. The worst part is, he was one of the most popular and socially adjusted kids in school, always invited to parties, girls always trying to spend time with him. He'd always get away with absurd things in school because even the teachers liked him. He was just really funny and naturally charismatic, not to mention fit and handsome. However, he was strictly religious, so he never had sex with any girls. A few years after graduation, he became an atheist, or just an agnostic, but by this time he had a dead-end job at a supermarket, had gained weight and was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z because he related to unleashing his true power. So he spent like 5 years desperately messaging girls from HS, trying to say hey I can have a sex now. But he was just not that attractive anymore and his social skills had deteriorated tremendously. He was rejected by every single girl that was pining over him just a few years ago. In high school, he ended up publicly coming out as a proud incel 2 years before the reunion. In a post where he declared war on women and socially adjusted men, he often posted about being a virgin and how Christianity basically made him an incel because he missed out every chance for sex he ever had. So at the reunion, he came wearing a white t-shirt with the words "duck you." He'd walk up to now married women that he had previously solicited and just smirked silently, waiting for them to read the shirt. He was thrown out by the venue after about 40 minutes since so many people complained of his creepy behavior. A former student of mine grew up in an ultra-conservative Christian home. He and his siblings were never allowed to socialize with other students during lunch and recess. Whenever they had free time at school, they had to read their Bibles. In science class, they were forbidden to learn about evolution. Every essay, short story, personal narrative, and poem he wrote for me involved some kind of Christian theme. When he graduated, he immediately enrolled in a big seminary in our area, and that was the last I heard of him until his class invited me to their 10-year reunion. This same kid showed up with sleeve tattoos, piercings everywhere, slamming beer after beer after beer and smoking like a locomotive. When I asked what he was doing now, he responded he currently was a bouncer at a strip club. In high school, I was pretty good friends with a guy that was a bit overweight, about 6'4", really smart and a bit nerdy. Lost track of him after high school but saw him at our 10-year reunion. He was the talk of the reunion. Still tall, lost all the weight and was in great shape. Had long hair like Fabio and was a doctor. He showed up with a beautiful wife. He gave us his contact info and invited us to Atlanta to stay with him in his huge house. After the reunion, I tried to get in touch. Contact info didn't work, and through some sleuthing I found out he was neither married nor a doctor. He was still in good shape. Can't fake that, but faked everything else. Again, I am not a teacher but a 35-year-old. I went to high school in Venezuela. I left the country when I was 17 and never saw any of them until what you might call a virtual reunion on Facebook a few years back. The reason I got to even know they had a group, the guy everyone knew bullied me, was shot and killed by his best friend at the time. Apparently he kept being a bastard after graduating and thus that was the end result. Besides that, most of my classmates moved from the country due to the crisis. Those who stayed are having a bad time. Like everyone else in the country, it is weird seeing them in Facebook in random countries and doing things which I would never expect from them as a teen. One is a cook in Sweden, other is an MMA fighter in California, one is an accountant in Australia, plenty of middle class lives in other South American countries. Simply interesting. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Do teachers get to go to high school reunions? That seems like a recipe for finding out if the English teacher really did have a dolphin tramp stamp. Edit. Apparently teachers are invited. Neat. 8 of my 438 student graduating class, 2009, have passed from opioid overdose. The reunion is this July. I have a few. One guy was this star pupil, smart, handsome, athletic, everything. Dating the head cheerleader. Some Hallmark movie it. They leave, go off to college and nobody thinks it'll go wrong. Come 10 years later, she divorced him, was given the house his late grandfather built in the divorce, and lived there with her new lover while he was in a hotel. 10-year reunion happens. He's deathly skinny and depressed. Sees the school. Remembers the memories he had. Goes home after reunion and kills himself, leaving behind 2 little girls. His ex got chased out of the community last year. Death threats against her and her lover. She's trying to get in contact with people now because the lover took her money and fled back to the Philippines and she's homeless now. Not a teacher, but there was a guy who was the stereotypical jock in high school. Very unemotional, stoic, etc. Then he went into the military and got PTSD. Now he is a hippie and psychotherapist. So, not a school reunion story, but I thought I'd input a happy story since a lot of these are a bit depressing. My mom used to be a teacher for children with severe learning disabilities. By severe, I mean the majority of students she taught could barely do anything for themselves. Now she's retired. But one day we were in the supermarket when a lady comes up to my mom and hugs her. She seems a bit surprised at first and asks if they know each other. And it turns out she used to be in her class. We get in the car and mom instantly breaks down in tears. After a few minutes she explains to me that 20 years ago, that lady had been unable to speak, walk or even go to the bathroom by herself. And yet there she was, out on her own, talking to us and doing her own grocery shopping. What probably made my mom cry was that after so long and accomplishing so much, this girl actually remembered her old teacher. 3. Not the teacher. And not the full school reunion either. I'm not sure if those even still happen since Facebook is a thing, but a group I hung out with of nerds like me in high school wanted to get back together and play deathmatch Quake, LAN party style like we did as kids. I'm effectively a loser with no social life and I'm scared of people. But this I thought I could handle. So I went. They asked me to pick up Joe on the way to the party, and I do. Joe was out of shape when we were kids. Like a pudgy kid. That was all that was really wrong with him. He was smart, well kept, and rich as duck. Like dad owned the restaurant franchise rich. Not like one of the locations. Like the entire company. We always had the parties at his house. He didn't bring our own computers. Cause he just had basically a lab we all played at. So I was a bit curious why we weren't repeating something like that. Not that I cared. I have my own lab. Not rich though, so we could have all had a computer. But we went to another dude's house. And who cares? Everyone brings a laptop now anyhow. Anyways, pick up Joe from a really sketchy looking house. Really surprised. Dude comes out of the place really big and really dirty looking. Clothes were dirty and tatted. Looked like he had dirt in his greasy hair. And he had to be 300 or 350 pounds. He was big. Hardly fit in my car. Almost immediately he tells me his dad died. Then he ran the company into the ground. Gambled away most of the money. Invested it in stupid things. etc. And basically he tells me inside of a car ride how he blew something ridiculous like 100 million bucks. Whole thing made me sick and sad. Currently a student in this situation. Had all the former graduates from the year prior come home. One kid, who used to drive me to school, started his own company out of his dorm and hit it big, household name within a year. Guy ended up dropping out soon after. One of the nicest guys I know. Shout out to you, Nick. I went to an all-girls boarding school. This one particular hostel supervisor had been working there since she was 22 and has been there for nearly 40 years, so she has definitely seen a lot. Our school's foundation day each year is attended by over 500 alumni. Some friends and I were chatting with her when this group of incredibly smart and intelligent women come up to her. After they greeted her, she told us that she never thought they would get anywhere in life. These girls were the most notorious of all the kids that she had to deal with. They chopped off a teacher's waist-length hair and stole teachers' cell phones only to bury them. Put on the janitor's uniform to sneak out of school. Got fake blood and put up handprints outside the rooms of 9 and 10-year-olds. Decided to summon spirits in a hostel building right after a visiting academic died of a heart attack. The rest of the girls in the hostel building were so scared that the school decided to lock down the building for nearly 5 years. They also took turns to stand on top of one of the buildings with a white sheet and showed it to kids in the farthest building. That's how we got our infamous resident school ghost. They all are in their late 20s now. Great jobs abroad, but looking at them you would never think they could pull something off like that in their teens. Not a teacher, but just wanted to give a shout out to the girl that's gonna win our high school reunion next year, in HS. She was super quiet and, well, she was a bigger girl. She was tall too, so it all compounded together. She tried to shy away from any limelight, but that was hard when she was like 8 inches taller than the rest of us. Anyway, she's lost like 80 pounds in the last couple of years. Found a hairstyle that suits her so well. She would wear it long, and has just really hit her stride. I want to say something, but I'm trying to maintain my total itch status from HS, so I'm not going to. Kidding. I just don't want to be that person that comments on weight, even though I know she worked hard for it and probably wants people to say something.